Hi, welcome to Kay's Tiny House, where I am building my very own tiny house. I have been working really hard on finishing up the cabinets, and I've started the stairs up to the loft, so I will break down how that's been going. First things first, I needed to fix the drawer that goes under the fridge. These were installed like the other drawers, which would make sense if this drawer was sticking out, but it is actually going to be inset. So I'm just gonna screw these off and move them back. I think it's 3/4 of an inch, whatever the width is of the drawer front. I just realized that these face frames are made out of the same thing as the door. So really, I just need to align it with inside the face frame, and that will be a perfect fit. Done. I also had to create new doors. As I said in my last video, I miscalculated some things, and this time I calculated them correctly. Phil helped me out with these. What are you doing, Phil?
We're going to use a biscuit joiner.
Yay!
The way we're going to do that is we've got 2 pieces of wood. We're going to line them up the way that we want. This is the seam that we want to use. We're going to draw some lines at regular intervals across each of them. And this is where we'll use the biscuit joiner here. It's going to create a hole in the center of each piece. We're going to insert a biscuit and join them together so that they line up.
I accidentally, when Doug was using the biscuit joiner the first time we made the drawers, it is raining really hard today. So if you hear thunder, that's what that is. And I could have sworn Doug was using the biscuit joiner like towards himself, which in my mind I was like, that seems dangerous, but it's also how he did it. So maybe that's how you're supposed to use it. So when Phil was setting up, I was like, I think this is how Doug did it, but I don't know. And he was like, really? That doesn't seem right. And I was like, I know. Watch me have made that up in my head. So I recorded Phil doing it that way. And then later I was like, Doug, did you use the biscuit joiner this way? And he's like, no, that's dangerous. And I was like, dang it. And I think I had just mixed up, like he was using the stopper for the table saw as like a something to lean against, and that's I don't know what I was thinking, but luckily no one was injured and the doors were made successfully. So yay. So then Doug and I borrowed a jig that Phil has for the cabinet hinges. I have these European hinges so that you can't see them from outside the cabinet. And it was interesting. That jig was a lifesaver. It was very cool, but just getting all of those measurements right and setting it up correctly. But now I have lovely little cabinet doors underneath the sink that have a soft close. That's really nice. And then the third door is the corner cabinet door, which is really awkward. So I decided to open it the opposite direction. So it opens from the left side. So the hinges are on the right side of the door. And I purchased 170-degree hinges so that the door can open much wider. Fun fact, it's a 1-inch overlay. So when Phil was helping me put in these hinges, he realized that you can't open the door all the way because the hinge impedes the door. So there were many ways I could have gone about this, but they being Doug and Phil, suggested creating a divot in the door just to have some room for the hinge to move. And yes, you'll be able to see it outside, but because I'm going to paint these a dark color, I I think I'll use a router, so it'll be a nice divot. And I don't think I'll really notice it that much. So there we go. With all that work of cabinets, I think I've spent many months working on these cabinets. I was like, I'm done with cabinets. I'm not done with the pantry drawers yet. I'll do those later. Let's move on. So I was like, let's do the stairs. And lo and behold, because the stairs are also storage, they're a bunch of drawers. It's basically a cabinet. So I designed them. I had Doug and Phil check my work. They were very helpful, making sure my math was correct. And then I have enough plywood to build these from leftover from the cabinet. So that was really cool. I didn't have to buy anything new to get started. Doug helped me build the stringers are these two pieces that because there's wall on both sides, I didn't have to do like proper stringers. They're the architectural sides of the stairs. Uh, so I just cut them out of 3/4 inch plywood. My doorbell transformer lives in this area on the wall. And I knew that it was going to be in the stairs, but my initial design of the stairs was that I was just going to be able to open the tread like a box and there'd be space in there. So I was like, oh, that works for the doorbell transformer because then I'll just be able to access it from the top of the stair. But then after reading into this concept, it seemed like the general consensus was that that was kind of a dangerous, flawed way to have storage for your stairs because you could trip on the treads and lift up the opening, and it just seemed like a hazard waiting to happen. So I was like, okay, switch that. I'll make them drawers instead, which meant that the big old doorbell transformer sticking out right where I want a drawer to be, of course. So Doug and I brainstormed different ways we could handle it. I tried finding a smaller transformer, but I could not easily find one. If you are aware of any, please let me know. So we decided to extend the hole, so where the outlet is, where we wired for that transformer, we will actually put the transformer in the wall and it has some space so that it doesn't get overheated. It would not be in the way of the drawer. So, yeah, that's where we went. So we just cut out a bigger hole there so that we could easily mount the transformer within the wall. So we basically cut two of the same pieces, and then in one, we cut the hole for where the transformer and that area was so we could access it after assembling it. And then the idea was to create a have two strips of plywood as the back to kind of help brace the pieces together and assemble things mostly before installing the casement in the tiny house. So I brought the pieces into the house. They will go here. But first, I want to install the drawer slides. And I have these little pieces with pocket holes that I'll use to brace the back. And then once that's assembled, I can slide it into there and make sure it's straight and level. Yeah, good times. So when I assembled the stairs, I decided to put on the drawer slides on the stringers before putting it all together, just so I could use gravity in my favor and not try to hold up the drawer slides to be perfectly level. So that worked out pretty well, except I don't know what I was on. maybe I was just tired after like a long day of work and then going over to do manual labor on the tiny house. But for some reason, the middle drawer slides were perfect. The top and bottom drawer slides were way off. And I didn't notice until after I had like put it in its place. And then when I had like gotten the top drawer to like fit it in and it wasn't working. And I was like, the slides are like way off. So I had to fix that. But luckily, it was fine. It worked. Doug helped me cut out all the pieces for the drawer boxes. I wasn't initially going to do a dadoed bottom for these drawer boxes like we did with the cabinets because I was lazy. But Doug was like, no, you're really going to want this. And I was like, well, that means you have to switch the blade for the the table saw to use the dado blades. And he was like, no, we can, because I was like, I want to live in this house soon. I don't want to be doing stuff forever just to make it nicer. So he was like, no, okay, we'll just use the table saw blade to cut dados. And that worked out really well. It was a bit tighter, but still worked. So he went ahead and cut through all the pieces for that 1/4 inch plywood to fit dadoed into the drawer boxes. I had to put the drawer pieces together. So I cut up some 1/4 inch plywood to be the bottom of the box. Luckily, I've had a lot of experience now with creating drawer boxes, so that went by pretty smoothly. And the drawer building continues. Which is interesting because it's one of the few new things I've learned that the skill I've been able to utilize again. So that was kind of cool. I felt much more independent on this project, mostly because Doug was busy with the vineyard, so I had to. Then it was my birthday, and I had planned the perfect day for myself, which isn't like anything crazy and exciting. It was like a walk in the park, a lovely breakfast and coffee, a little photo shoot with Taco. I did go to Fine Lumber and Plywood to pick out some maple for the stair treads because I needed some kind of hardwood, and I ended up finding a maple. I ended up getting a curly maple and some bird's eye maple. That was It's a nominal inch. I wanted to find an inch, truly inch thick piece for the treads, just because they expand a little more than 30 inches. So I was like, oh, it'd be nice to have a thicker piece of wood. But all that they had were like 1.5 inches that were the the right length that I needed without having to joint. Blah, blah. So I was like, I'm just going to settle for the maple that I find. And so I had to dig around to find boards that were wide enough because the stair treads are 10 3/4 inches. So lots of digging there. But Taco liked it. It was fun. And I definitely did not want to work actively on the house on my birthday. So I just did that fun shopping trip to the lumber store. And then what else did I do? I got lots of cakes. I got Amy's ice cream, had Popeyes for dinner. And yeah, it was just a lovely, lovely day. It was a Thursday, so I took off work. And then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I hung out with all my friends, and it was lovely. I just had a really good self-enrichment time and friend and company enrichment time. So all of that was great. For the drawer fronts and the face frames of these drawers, I used leftover pine that I had from the cabinets. It was a lot of table saw and the joiner, which is, I think, my favorite power tool. Yeah, it makes like a clean edge. It's nice. It's a relaxing tool. I don't feel like I'm gonna die every time I use it. It doesn't take forever to do its job. I'm looking at you, planer. they're all 9-inch high drawer boxes, but the bottom drawer, because the face frame is an inch and a half fully, then I had very little leeway with where I could put the drawer sliders on the drawer itself.
First try, too low. Second try, too high. Third try is a charm. Hopefully.
But I did it, so yay. It fits. I was really worried that the drawer was too big, but I was like, no, the measurements, they're fine. So it was just that I had very little wiggle room for that. Then I started to cut the maple down to size, which was a little tricky. So when I bought it, I was just in my own car. So I had them slice the maple just smaller so it could fit in my car. And then I realized, like, how do I cut? Because both sides were rough edged. I was like, how do I cut the length I want and have it straight? So Phil gave me the idea of using my favorite tool, the joiner, to run that a few times on one side until it was straight, then cut the other side off the table saw. So that worked really well. And then I did that and still ran that side through the joiner just so I had two straight edges, and then cut it to size on the miter saw. So that worked out really well, and I was able to make all three treads. And then I went ahead and sanded them. My goal is to try to stain them to kind of match the floor. So if I bought something, we'll see how it works. I then needed to install the stringers and like attach them to the walls as well as the back to the back wall. And I needed a lot of shims to do that, really thin shims too. But that all worked out really well. I was able to screw them into studs on the wall, so that was nice, very secure. And there was some like wiggle room to make sure that the drawers still slid in and out well and that it looked nice. Up next, I will need to stain the treads, polyurethane the treads, actually attach the treads to the stairs itself. Right now, they're just resting on top. And then I'll need to polyurethane the drawer boxes because those will be active storage. So that'll just be easier for upkeep later. And yeah, that'll be it for stairs. And then I get to make a wardrobe upstairs. So I think that's what I want to do next is the closet upstairs. So this closet is going to house the washer dryer. That'll be one section. The middle section will be for clothes. So surprise, more drawers and something to like a curtain rod or something to hang clothes from as well. And then the right side will be like a utility closet, and that'll have my water heater in there. So I need to figure out that structure, and I want it to be like sliding doors that can cover the space. So I need to figure that out. So it's more designing to be done as I finish up the stairs. And next time I will update you on all the fun, glorious projects that I have done since today. All right, thank you for watching. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel to stay updated on the tiny house updates, and I will talk to you later. Bye.